I am so glad that you are here so early. This is quite a challenge to arrive here so early with this traffic. Thank you for this opportunity. Hopefully you are going to have a great time. This is a debate, a collaboration of ideas that are going to be useful for all of us. Let me remind you that we have a specific channel for you to share your ideas through sliders. So if you have a question during this session, I am going to open a 10-minute session at the end of my conversation with Claudia. So please visit slider.com, discharge AWLATAM, and this is COLOURS room. And with this information, you can download the application and ask the questions that you need appropriate. So I want to brag about you, about all the things that you have been able to use in your work now in this wonderful foundation of yours. And you are going to walk us through why you decided to put this name. If you have clear what are the 17 objectives for the CDM, do you know? Do you know them? Do you know all the goals? Well, there are 17 goals. Wonderful goals for creators, for companies, and for those that are in charge of the communications of communications. Claudia Romo is the founder of the We Are All Human Foundations, and she also has a podcast, Global Us Cast, that has been awarded. Yes, we are #1 in Apple in this week, so we are happy for that. In a moment in which podcasts are the best way to communicate, she is general publisher of Thrive Global and chief editor of communication and advocacy of climate change goals. She has also been working with advocacy UNICEF at a global level, among many other subjects. She has been working with Mexican people, with Switzerland people. She has been working at the UN Secretary's office to develop these goals. And this is great because you found your vocation there, I think. Well, so what is... When we are talking about global consumers, the passive consumer, that it's purpose-driven, thinking about their values, voting with the heart, what can you say about that? Well, first of all, let me tell you that I am delighted to be here with all of you. I am amazed that you are on time in this conflicting city with a lot of traffic. This is a great opportunity for me to talk about this subject matter. Sustainable Development Goals are the master plan for the future of the mankind and the planet. They took 5 years and more than 193 countries to discuss this with the private sector, with individuals, and with all the stakeholders to make the decision about what do we need to reach 3 main goals. The promises are that if we are able to accomplish 17 goals that are part of the master plan, and when you are as neurotic as I am, you need to have a master plan. So we have 17 goals to take care of our planet from here to the year 2030 to accomplish 3 main things. This is the first generation in all the mankind history that really has all the conditions to root out extreme poverty out of the earth. And we can accomplish that. We have our checklist and we can root out extreme poverty. Secondly, we are the last generation that can stop the impact of climate change in our planet, so we can really have future generations with rivers the same way we know them. And the third promise of the SDGs is that this is for all of us. This is a moment in time in which all of us can have similar conditions. So it is a host of great promises that are fabulous. I think of Mexico, and I think of the rest of the world, and I think that we are overwhelmed of negative things, the tweets, people, news. She's a journalist. News that are talking about waves of negativity. But the story here is that in reality, there is a vast number of people making the difference here. I want to ask 3 questions. Can I do that? Yes. Show hands up. The first question is, what is the level of poverty worldwide? I'm talking about the general poverty level, not only considering Mexico. In the last 20 years, the level of poverty in Mexico, has it doubled, has remained the same, or has decreased half? In the last 20 years, poverty all over the world has doubled. Show of hands. Has remained the same? Has decreased half of it? Oh, you are very brave. The second question. Access to electricity at a world level. 30%, 50%, 80%. Access to electricity worldwide, no matter where you are. Access to electricity, 30%, show of hands, 50%, 80%. And my last question, girls' education, gender education, girls' education. The first answer, men at 30 years old, worldwide level, have accomplished 10 years of education. What happens with girls? They have 3 years, 6 years, or 9 years of education. If men have 10 years of education, how many years of education girls have? Who said 3 years? Show of hands. 6 years? 9 years of education? Well, these are the answers. Poverty all over the world has decreased half of it. And access to electricity all over the world is 80%. And girls' education is 9 years old, because we are moving forward no matter where you are considering it. Even though we are bombarded with negative news and we see a very grim future, the great opportunity today is to be a girl. If you have the opportunity to be to decide where you would like to be, the best way to be born is today. There's no better time for a girl to be born, to have access to health, to electricity, and to be able to vote. Mexico, as any other country in the world, has to be more positive. The problem with trusting in institutions is that we know that we are moving forward. We don't know who to trust. We don't know where to put the needs that we need to have in order to have more possibilities. Well, I am not going to be talking about the 17 SDGs. You can browse them in internet in every language. Gender variety, clean water, drinkable water, clean energies, decent job, that this is one of the issues in Mexico and Latin America, minimize, reduce poverty, sustainable communities. Why do we think it's important to talk about this in this type of events? Because as never before, the people that can promote them are young people that are in charge of companies that are buying, that are procuring things. We are talking about millennials that are the star in this event. And because it's good business, consumers are there. Last year, we launched, and Fernando Manchado is here, right? In the Cannes advertising event, when I was working at the General Secretary's office was that event. I knew that in order for me to be able to talk about SDGs, I needed to talk with the creators, with the creative industry. So we launched the SDGs Lions Awards because it's a very clear history. The world is moving forward. The future consumer wants to consume companies that have heart, and they want to work in companies in which their values are in alignment. 66% of millennials in US buy with the things that they believe in. They don't buy for the attributes of a product. They buy a product because they believe in the values of that company. And this is happening not only in Mexico, in the US, 63% in China, 73% in Mexico, and these are Edelman data. But assessment of companies, as Marta was saying, that have sustainability, that means profitability. So at the end of the day, the assessment of companies that have a purpose and to have SDGs as a frame is the best option that you can have, because everything has been managed. They have been colored, they have been fine-tuned in order to be able to know that any social thing that is being done by a company is going to be accomplishing SDGs. Figures are clear for future consumers and for future employers. Unilever is company number 3 to work in, because as of 10 years ago, they decided that all the marketing, all the corporate communication was going to have a mission and a purpose. 67% of all the millennials in the US have said that they wouldn't work for a company that has different values than them. They don't want to work in a company that is going to mistreat women. And at the same time, they have expressed that silence is no longer an option. Companies that are in silence, those times that no news, good news, and if there is a racism affair, nothing is going to happen, is in the past. And Mexico has a lot to do with this. Tell me about that. This is a great opportunity to say that this is not only profitable, because right now it's cheap to do this type of exercise when you recognize that the consumer, the citizens, are the same people as the employee. So this is a time of opportunities. What is the message that you would like to convey? One of the main reasons I decided to came down to Mexico to spend here less than 30 hours here is to tell you that the world is moving forward. The change is possible, and we are going to reach our goals in 2030 if we as consumers, as citizens, put pressures in the government so people can have this goal met. But you need to have your heart where you have your brief creative. If I have my brand name that is telling me, make me my brief on how to sell soaps, put the stamp of SDGs, put some purpose, put some mission on it. We are going to be talking about how to include missions embedded in all the processes that you are implementing, both in the press releases, in the mainstream media. You always need to put your heart in every communication or in every creative brief that you are working on. Creators have much more power than you would think. Using the framework as the SDGs is very useful. So we need to guide companies towards the future. The current consumer in Mexico is delayed. They haven't realized yet that buying organic products have a really value. In US and in other places, it's similar. It's very easy to find products that have the same price, but in Mexico they need to start working on this. So one industry that can promote the change faster is this one. We can accelerate the change. That's why I told you that this is a great opportunity. Considering the podcast that you do with these positive histories, there are a lot of positive stories that can be useful. Tell us about an example that can be useful for a brand. And we have to recognize that global brand have this inertia that is happening all over the world. But Mexican companies that are not as advanced and that they need more guidance regarding a profitable proposal. Well, in the future, we have a podcast that talks about the progress stories of the champions that make the difference. And I've been working 25 years in this field, so I have credibility to say this company is being successfully doing this company needs to work harder. And the truth is that this is going to be a great opportunity for consumers to have brand democracy. I'm going to buy where I can have more opportunities. And one of the stories that I like the most is the issue of Brenda. Brenda is a Mexican woman that crossed the river in the border, hidden in the trunk of the pickup of her parents many years ago. She didn't have opportunity, she didn't speak English, and she had an opportunity in a technology company in San Francisco. She is a software engineer in Google. It's great. Google adopted Brenda's story to say this girl has no papers, is an immigrant, but she has a greater potential. So through Brenda, we are going to be talking about the benefits of migration. So with that, they defended the dreamers stand, and they wanted to have a posture in the podcast. We are talking not only about Brenda, but the power of technology and the backlash that Google had, because many people started to criticize them. How come you are being involved with migration issues? This is not belonging to you. But brands need to have mission drivers, and they need to have clarity on the fact that there are consequences. There's always someone that is not going to be in agreement with you, but in other instances you need to have clarity on the fact that you are going to have some backlash. I'm glad that you are saying this, because in the US this is the perfect segue to go to that specific market, the US market. When we see that there are a lot of incidents of racial issues, and this is one of the most important issues. Please talk to me about what are you doing. Claudia travels all over the US, and she has been talking about immigrants. I've been living in the US for 18 years, and they tell me, you are Hispanic, and I say, no, I am not a Hispanic. I am a Mexican woman. I am a Latin American woman. Hispanic is just a checkbox in the survey format.
Well, amongst Mexicans, we are discussing this, and we have been working on this global podcast. If you like podcast, try it, because it is part of a future that is growing, and it is a good example to personalize stories. I've been living 25 years abroad. I moved to the US a year ago, but to work for the UN and Davos. And when I got to the United States, I'm a marketeer. I work. And what I found was these issues. It was an enigma, because nothing made sense at all. So I started noticing figures in the US of Latins, 59 million people. The poor people are the ones paying taxes, that we have this acquisition power of trillions of dollars, 70% of labor for the future. When I realized these numbers and saw the reality and how we are placed in the media as the criminals, the pizza delivery man, no, we're not this. Above all, we are 1% of Latins are in Texas, so we're not going backwards. We are not represented by the media, the government, the corporations. There are no high-end entrepreneurs working with us. So I organized this Cacarajo supper time, and I invited Latins to understand what the fuck is going on, because how come it is possible 70% out of these 55 million Latins or Hispanic people, these term coined by the Americans are Mexican, and they send money back to their country, and they all have family abroad, and they have this close relationship, a very strong liaison. And the image they have of Latins actually affects us as Mexicans, and the image we convey of our pride and our presence, it is hard to understand that the most effort the world is doing on progress, like this is a pandemia that might slow this progress, and that is division, the full division of language, narrative, policies in the US, in Poland, in Turkey, and the world is moving forward. Populist words are an answer against this division, and I organized this We're All Human organization to remind people that we are all human beings, and if we forget that and that we belong to a different elite, then the progress might move backwards, and racism and discrimination are becoming stronger. 6 minutes. So we have questions, and to wrap up, let's get some ideas for the concept of corporations. I was talking to Claudia, and by interviewing ambassadors in the US, I was asking about this missed opportunity, the narrative that talks about the Mexican population that goes beyond the stereotype, that is a burden in the media. As a journalist, we are compelled to break stereotypes, but we are on our own. We need corporations to convey this message regarding stakeholders. So, questions on the screen. But in the interim, the positive message that we have to convey is how to make the visible Latin community, to make them visible just by speaking and being together, because this is a fragmented community. Mexicans in Chicago do not communicate with those in Miami. Once you get there, when you are someone in this, if you believe you are the only one, we have to change this discourse, and we have to create these spaces, create jobs, because we are the academy, the entrepreneurs, job creators, taxpayers. We are not criminals, pizza deliverers. No, we have to adopt this and be proud of it. From Mexico to Latin America, and from Latin America to Mexico. And by 2020, we are having more elections, and Latins are those who don't vote or are not regarded. I've been at the economic forum in Davos, Cannes, anywhere we have some space, we have to talk about the contribution of Latins in the US, and that we should be so proud of this. 2 questions. Which actions are the groundings to be successful today, and how can we move? Please put the still on the screen. It is in Times Square. The picture, the image, this still, so you can talk. It's word human, and the more noisy we are, the more successful. It is about volume. It is about changing the speech. It is about modifying our conducts, because the future of my community in Mexico, in the US, it won't be on the hands of the governments, because they have not the skills. So we have to do this ourselves. We have to do this by the creators. We have to make this at corporate levels. We have to do this everywhere. You know what? This is something I love. Mexican companies don't want to stand up regarding LGBTQ communities, and we have to be bold. It is amazing, but it has consequences. Well, let me tell you this. And this is the example I want to talk about, transformation. The LGBTQ community, 6 years ago, there was this survey, and the community in the U.S. said, I don't want to be open as LGBTQ because it will affect me in my job position. 6 years after, LGBTQ want to be as open as possible, and they get promotions. And Tim Cook by Apple after. Yes, because the people now are open. They are proud of being part of this community. Now they are a community. This transformation from being invisible, be afraid, and not being open, but now you have to be the pride, the marriage. What is the Latin pride? Like LGBTQ, they are a visible community. It is accepted, and of course, talking about it will lead you to wonderful things. Target example 3 years ago is that they installed these genderless restrooms, and they had this success. Like old women didn't want to go to Target because they thought this was rude, and they lost. Of course, they have to take risks. They lost the conservative old women who wouldn't buy in Target, and 6 months after they returned because it was so very convenient. But yes, you have to understand there will be consequences. I don't know if this question is applicable in Mexico. Is it still a question? Then we have to rethink again the issue about women. Yes, this is a trend now. I work on TV. You have one woman. Otherwise, have you found difficulties by doing some commercial promotion if it is not having these sustainable responsibilities? Yes, I found this, but it is about showing figures. The future consumer will render this. Gillette, Nike, these are not social issues. It is marketing, actually. It is about regarding data. Of course, there are difficulties, but once you show figures, they understand. So thank you very much. Thank you for your concepts, your ideas. Better to wake up. So fortunately, it will be, you will have lots of success in your work. And for the creators in Mexico, we have these huge assets and capital in Mexico. We have to tackle discrimination and racism face forward. And it is about not limiting ourselves. And if you think someone is stealing your oxygen, once you jump out of the bubble, you understand that air is unlimited and that we can all breathe all together, and that you don't have a spot at the table. Mexico is for everyone, and we have to be all together because one is everybody. Thank you. Good day.